So welcome to the COVID-19 Future of Inkjet webinar today. I'm just going to kind of slowly introduce people because I know there's a lot of people increasingly getting into the session, so I want to wait a little bit before we kick off formally. I've got a great panel today, and I think a really obviously very topical subject, but we've got some really good insight with some early survey results from the COVID Future of Inkjet Survey I've done this week. So we've got around 70 respondents to that, and I think it's quite a valuable bit of insight that we can use as well. And we've got a really good panel of guys from the inkjet world and from the packaging world, and with Simon Roberts Integration Technology as well, coming with a lot of experience with automotive as well. So we've got a really good panel and a really good session. We may even exceed the hour, but if I kind of just introduce myself, my name is Marcus Timpson. I'm a partner of a business called FM Future with my colleague Fraser Chesterman. Our branding that we launched before COVID actually was about clarity and direction in a turbulent world. We're a consultancy business that helps technology companies, principally in inkjet, with their communication and storytelling. And our background is running exhibitions and events for my format printing and inkjet printing, including more recently the imprint show. So that's me, Marcus Timpson. We've got Paul Jenkins, the PackHub, Dave Gray, Ricoh, Simon Roberts Integration Technology, Steffen Ohr at Sihl, and Arnaud Linquette at Memjet, all innovators, all pioneering businesses, and all with a really sort of good track record of experience within technology and innovation with regards to print technology. The agenda is we're going to have a look at the survey and the results, and we're going to have a chat around these, not just with me presenting, we're going to have a chat around these. Paul then will present some insights regarding, I guess, changing behavior that we're seeing that perhaps COVID has introduced and also accelerated. We're going to look a bit about how out of this kind of chaos and crisis we can see some creativity, and also we're going to pose the question that actually once we're beyond the crisis, when that happens, whether we see some future acceleration of some of the trends that inkjet perhaps can help accelerate. So yes, as I said, we've back in the end of last year with Ricoh, we launched the Future of Inkjet Survey, which to a large extent was derailed by COVID. So what we've done this week was decided to update perhaps some of the questions really to factor that in. So we've asked the following questions. Please estimate the impact of COVID-19 on demand. Mostly people that enter this are the inkjet and manufacturing community, and it's an international spread of people. It's not just British, it's all over Europe, America and South America. Unsurprisingly, demand has reduced by 20% and above, most people saying that, 53%. I think some industries more than others, but equally that's kind of, I guess, aligned with the conversations that I've had. When do you expect to see these restrictions relax and normal trading to resume? 29% are thinking October this year. 24% are saying, well, actually, it won't happen until, you know, a vaccine is found. So there's no definitive answer there. So guys, what anybody would like to chime in on this slide in terms of normal trading? What's your view on that? When do you think things will become normal again and we'll start getting back to production and so on?
From your first question there, Marcus, I'm not sure the bandings that you had were quite wide enough, in fairness. I mean, you've only gone up to sort of 20% and above. I think you know, you could break that down further. I think some industries obviously have seen a cliff edge in terms of some of their activity, and I think a lot would be looking at, you know, at least 50% in terms of demand. It's a little bit like we were just talking before we started about the automotive. Of course, a lot of the automotive manufacturers in the UK, or all of them in fairness across Europe, work on the just-in-time manufacturing process. So as soon as their plants stop, their requirement for parts and components it stops immediately as well. So there's just a cliff edge there. And while I'm talking, I guess if I reference your question, reference question 2, there's obviously some the health versus wealth activity there on some of those answers. You know, as the MD of a company and trying to obviously navigate the ship through the crisis, it would be sooner rather than later. But I think from a health perspective, and you know, I have elderly parents myself, it could easily be January, I think, before the restrictions are lifted for the vast majority of anybody that's in any sort of vulnerable group.
Yeah, and that impacts a bit on, well, not a bit, a lot, doesn't it, in terms of, you know, this as an industry, we're fairly dependent on events, aren't we? In terms of how connecting, generating new opportunities and so on. And I guess looking ahead to the autumn, I don't know, this time last month, we'd have thought, well, surely it'll be back to normal by then. But actually now, I think you're right. I think we're starting to settle and sink in, isn't it? That if you're running an exhibition, particularly a global one, November looks kind of difficult.
I think, Marcus, your wording of using normal trading resuming, I don't think we know what normal is anymore. I think it's going to change for all time. There'll be a new normal. But I don't think we yet know what that's going to look like exactly. It'll evolve as we come out of this. I think a lot of the standards we've accepted, a lot of what we regarded as normal, we've been forced to change. People don't like change. It's inherent. We don't like change, and none of us would have gone over to this way of working if we'd had a choice. It's been forced upon us, and it's forced us to question everything. I think a lot of what we regarded as normal, no, not anymore. And we've looked at alternatives and the new way of working, the new way of promoting product, the new way of where print fits within all sides of industry. I think it'll change for all time. This is going to accelerate a change that would have been resisted by a lot of people that has now been forced upon people.
Yeah, so I try to use the picture of a project for me. So COVID-19 is for me somehow a project. Okay, and admittedly, no one has asked us to participate. So from one day to the other, we were automatically all in. But for sure, and as every project, it will have an end. And for sure, it will have an impact on our future. So that's clear. And I really agree that some business automatics will change, and mechanics.
Yeah, definitely. Any other comments on this slide before we move forward?
I think from, let's say, a leadership point of view, I think at least when we discuss with our clients, they are for sure working very hard right now to be prepared for actions. and those actions, they see them more probably in September, early September. We need to bear in mind also that probably people will be willing to take a bit some holidays. At least in Europe, it's important in July, in August. So I think there will be a big effort of actions between September and December to have a second wave of hopefully acceleration beginning of 2021.
I think one of the points is what you're saying there about acceleration is a good one, because this is what someone I heard call an exogenous recession that we'll come into. It's not economically created, it's a foreign body. So that's twofold. We don't know what the new normal will be, but equally we could see a very steep incline in terms of once confidence has returned and social distancing has become less of a either twofold. We become more accustomed to it and we prepare for it, and that confidence returns. I think it's a key thing, isn't it? Confidence is what's defining it. At the moment, none of us, I would guess, feel confident going out and going to an event, if should that event be on even. Would you agree with that?
I think companies are still in survival mode. They don't know when the end of this is, and they're trying to build a strategy to survive until the end of it. For sure, there is business in the afterlife. After post-COVID life, there will be business. And there's nothing to say that if you were a successful company trading before COVID, you won't be successful afterwards.
To survive.
Yeah. So you've got to survive until you reach that point, and not everybody will. You know, we've got to be pragmatic about that. But also, all of the costs that are rolling up now, and different governments and different authorities are supporting business in different ways around Europe, around the world. That cost still has to be met at some point in the future. Nobody wants to talk about it. We're looking at bailouts, we're looking at grants, we're looking at staff being furloughed or financially supported while they're not working. Those costs are effectively on an overdraft account, and the day of reckoning will have to come. A lot of that is being funded through central governments, and that's going to be taxation. Is the only way to fund that. And government needs industry to recover. It needs for the taxation to revenues to come in from individuals and from businesses. So there's got to be an injection of something to get industries kick-started again. It's okay to keep them in survival mode until the end of this, but kick-starting them back into action. And I think companies, they've got time now, some of them, to reflect on how they carry out business and are they doing it the best way. Again, there's a conversation that says, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And so people have really just been happy to go on day after day. I don't need to change. I don't need to look at new ways of running my business. Now people are saying, well, is that going to be enough afterwards? You know, what are my competition going to be doing? How do I differentiate myself? How do I win business back that I've lost during this recession?
I think, Marcus, in our side, to build on what Dave says, at least at Memjet, our experience is that you have really two things. You have very short-term actions. It's really to support customers, you know, and to be very reactive because they need ink, they need printhead, and we have been affected also with the COVID-19 by our supply chain has been affected. So we work very hard to deliver the best as possible and as fast as possible, despite the shutdown in countries like in Malaysia or in Singapore, at least for us. So it is really a very short term, and then at the same time, more long term, exactly as Steffen explained, it's a project management. And I think we discuss a lot with our customer, or they contact us to discuss about strategy, countermeasure, how to be better or stronger in the future with more tailored solutions, and they look at their product. So, you know, it's a diversity of actions that need to be done in a very short time in order to be ready and stronger when the wave one is starting, in fact.
Yeah, and as you say, it will restart. History proves that after recessions, then, you know, markets recover, and they recover in a different way, but the demand recovers. It's an up and down inevitable thing. So looking at this slide, I've just moved forward a little. What sectors have been affected most by COVID-19? Simon's already kind of mentioned automotive, which isn't even on this, but it's highly impacted. But wide format, commercial print, and textile seem to have been the worst affected. Wide format, I guess, because it's retail oriented, most of the shops are shut, no need to print. Commercial print also, but I guess textile is also a supply chain issue.
You need to share the slide, Marcus.
Oh, right, you can't see it. Okay, so you can see it now, can you?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the next one, yeah. Sorry about that. So yeah, wide format, 64%, commercial printing, 60%, and then textile, 49%. So wide format, that's obvious, isn't it? Do you think that will just return once the shops start opening again, or you have had a question about that? When will it return, wide format?
Yeah, there are several different applications behind. So this is exactly what we currently face at Sihl. So we see exactly that our POS and advertising media is really suffering, but yeah, we are depending on the events, we are depending on the shops. So, and I hope once this is possible again, that this recovers very quickly. So what we also see and what we have done, so this was in a very first step when COVID popped up, that we positioned or repositioned our advertising media in other areas, maybe using clear films and roll-up application as room divider or for split protection, for example. So this was one of the first steps what we have done, but for sure we are not able to win what we have lost with that.
Yes, what you're saying, you innovated a solution that helps protect people from, you know, spreading and so on.
Yeah, so we took the advertising media and we position it in hygiene applications, for example.
Yeah.
Together with our customers.
Interest in that? You had quite a lot of interest in it.
So this has we have seen some positive feedback. Also, we use clear film for the production of the masks. So this has started, yeah. But
yeah.
So that's the side effect. Yeah, this is what we have done directly after we have seen what happened.
Yeah, and I heard someone say from delegates saying that they've seen customers in commercial print that have had reductions of the point that you were making, Simon, 80% drops in demand. So it's not surprising commercial print there is high. Textile's an interesting one. Obviously, most shops are shut, aren't they? But there's a whole supply chain problem here, isn't there, in terms of getting product that's formerly centralized and coming from, you know, Asia, not getting into certain markets, and so textiles been adversely affected as well by all accounts.
I think the whole thing about supply chain has caused a lot of people to look at where they're getting their product from, and the security of that supply chain has scared a lot of people. I mean, for the inkjet industry, I think there's great opportunity here that people will move away from long supply chains for print and bring it closer to the point of consumption, and that really opens up the opportunity for inkjets and for medias and for inks. I think it's going to change the way that all supply chains work. We've all experienced it. The knee-jerk reaction as soon as COVID hit was we stocked up on toilet rolls and pasta. No reason why we were going to consume any more, purely because we were at home instead of being in the office or on the road. But there people become concerned about products that have long supply chains. And I think individuals reacted very quickly. Industry was forced to react. A lot of companies, they talk about having their supply chain on the water for months, coming from China and elsewhere. And when that supply chain is interrupted and your business is brought to its knees, you can't risk that in today's world. There's always a competitor waiting on your shoulder to take your business from you. So I think people will look to build resilience into their supply chain, and one of the ways of doing that will be to print closer to consumption, the point of consumption. And I think one of the, looking at your graphs here, it doesn't surprise me at all. People aren't marketing in the same way and advertising in the same way at the moment. When we go to supermarkets, we don't care anymore what brand of toilet roll or pasta is on the shelf. We buy it because it's there. And I think coming out of the end of this, brand owners, both of the product and even through the retail outlets, the supermarkets, are going to have to fight hard to recover the brand loyalty that was there before COVID. People will have tried different brands and found them good enough. They will have found different supermarkets and supply routes that were good enough or even better. And so there's going to be a lot of loyalty up for grabs. And so the brand owners and the retailers, I think that's where we'll see point of sale, looking down your list, commercial printing, all of those, even packaging, fighting hard to recover loyalty that was there before and to grab what's floating.
On that note, someone from Mark from the guy I know actually, Mark Burnett. Anyway, he said, will this see an acceleration of interest in digital signage in retail? Will it skip print and go straight to the digital stuff? Because actually that can do all of the things that you've said, this renewed battle on the kind of retail shop floor, as it were.
It's a hefty investment. The investment in a digital sign immediately post-COVID, people are going to be strapped for cash. People are living off their cash reserves and then going into borrowing. So I think major investments will be difficult. I think cheap investments, you know, digital print is at the cheap end of a campaign. It's a very quick fix and is very responsive. So I think that the digital hardware for digital marketing is a slightly longer term strategy. I think there'll be an increase in web-based marketing because it's very responsive and targeted. But it's gonna be like the Klondike. You know, all of a sudden, as soon as COVID's released, everybody will be out there trying to grab and re-grab the business that is out there. The business hasn't gone away. People will still consume the same amount of food and the same amount of clothing. But
okay, so moving on a bit. So number 4, sectors that have seen increase, as you've mentioned there, of you know, hardly surprising, pharmaceutical and medical are much higher, but also packaging and corrugated packaging. Whether that means inkjet will suddenly be increased in flexible. We mentioned yesterday it's not huge yet, and it's lots of barriers technically speaking, but corrugated increase as well. So there are some, and labels. So there are some positive things there for the market right now. Equally, as we said, that decentralization model where maybe 3D printing is being used a lot more. You've seen that at Ricoh, haven't you?
Yes, I mean, as a result of the COVID, the facilities we had there, we have a suite of machines normally used for demonstrations, but also a bureau service. They were immediately all thrown over to printing face masks. In the short term, medium term, what we did is we were commissioning an injection mold, because whilst we've all seen the pictures every night on the news of people printing the masks in their bedrooms, it's hugely inefficient. What was needed was injection molds that can turn them out by tens of thousands every day, and that's now the case. So again, it shows the role of 3D printing, additive manufacturing, as very fast response to a problem, to an opportunity. But actually long term, you go back to a more analog way of production.
Yeah, to do the mass stuff. And actually, I want to bring Simon in at this point, because obviously we see here a renewed interest in medical and pharmaceutical. Now you've been innovating, Simon, as well, haven't you?
Yes, we've done our best to try and modify the products that we currently have to suit certain applications. I guess integration technology as a UV manufacturer, we've been traditionally manufacturing lamp heads that emit UVA, UVB and UVC light for obviously almost 20 years. And one of the advantage side effects of the UVC light is that it's obviously very good at the disinfection and sanitization of bacteria and viruses. So we've been rapidly modifying one of our most successful products that has traditionally been used on for curing of ink and coatings in the graphical printing market to be a portable UVC lamp head for the sanitization of surfaces. So we entered into a government-led competition by the Defence and Security Accelerator, where they were looking for new technologies or new processes in order to accelerate the sanitization of the patient cabin in the back of an ambulance between patients. So you've got a heart attack victim in the back of an ambulance. You don't also want him to catch COVID-19 on the way to the hospital. So the method that they're using at the moment to sanitize the ambulances is that they have to go to a make-ready facility, so effectively a posh car wash, for want of a better word, where they have to go off-site for the sanitization process that can take up to 45 minutes. And obviously that takes them off the front line for 45 minutes to an hour. The product that we have is obviously can be used on any surface for any application where there's a potential high risk of cross-contamination between public. So it can be, you know, any type of application. But the interesting one about the ambulance is that obviously there are some health and safety issues associated with UVC light, that it can be quite damaging for unprotected skin and eyes. So if a paramedic is already head to toe in hazmat gear and gloves, then with the addition of a protective visor, then actually with the right training, potentially the paramedic could actually do the sanitization of the ambulance themselves between patients, which would greatly obviously decrease the time that they were off the front line servicing the public.
Excellent. And have you anything you want to show, or I mean, because obviously the background technology is something
sure.
that's designed for printing, isn't it?
Sorry, you've already been, you're ahead of me, aren't you?
Maybe.
What can you see now?
I think we're still.
No, we can see your screen.
You can.
Can you see the presentation?
See your desktop.
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, I can see it.
Yes. Presentation.
Yeah.
See, this is where the technology lets you down.
No, that's all right. That looks all right.
There we got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so oh, I'm getting ahead of it.
No worries.
Okay, so if you look in the top right hand corner of that slide, the product that we've had for over 15 years is the Sub-Zero medium pressure lamp head. We've shipped maybe 15,000 of those over the last 15 years, I would suggest. And it's normally mounted obviously on a printing press to cure ink and coatings. On the left-hand side, you can see that we've modified it with a gun type grip handle on the bottom, and what we're calling like a drill type hand support on the side. The cable connects it to its own power supply. It plugs into a conventional electrical outlet, whether that's 110 or 220. And as you can see, that as long as the skin and the eyes are protected away from the UVC, then it's absolutely fine. In the bottom right hand corner are what are the inactivation rates. Now, when we spoke with the Defence and Security Accelerator, who were working with some clever boffins at Borden Down, they are using the SARS-CoV-1 as the reference virus for the effectively compare the inactivation rate with what we now have, which is the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. And when we've done the output testing on our unit, such that we're now looking at being able to eliminate 90% of the viral load on a surface in around about 2.5 seconds of exposure time, and we can inactivate 99.9% of the viral load in about 8 to 10 seconds of exposure. So we hopefully that's going to move on if it catches up. So yeah, just briefly to say that you know, we started off with the competition that we entered with the Defence and Security Accelerator for ambulances, but obviously this applies to everything. And one of the most interesting applications actually that came out this week was for the handrails on escalators. So we could obviously very easily mount a UVC lamp under the running gear of a shopping centre escalator and sanitize the handrail as it moves past the light. But obviously, you know, transportation is a big thing. You've got a lot of people in close proximity to each other, and you know, I'm not a virologist, and you know, Mr. Trump says, you know, keeps saying I'm not a doctor, but this theory of viral load does seem to be a credible one, that actually if you can eliminate 90, 95, 90, 99% of viruses on surfaces, that it actually does generally mean that people, even if they do contract the virus, end up with maybe a lower form of the, or not so serious form of the COVID-19 as maybe the rest of us get, that it's just a mild form of the virus. So that's where we are, Marcus. Basically, we've put as much effort into that as we can, and hopefully we can help some people with the sanitisation of their areas.
Yeah, so that has an immediate kind of focal point, but actually long term, it might become, like you say, normalised, that this kind of sanitation will continue to be kind of a normal requirement for public spaces. And like you said, I can see it working beautifully on a escalator handrail, like you're saying, and within ambulances, but also there's a massive shortfall of actual liquid sanitisation as well, so it gets around that as well, doesn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to take back the presentation, hopefully.
Right.
So this is different. It's all different. It's changed on me, the system. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it when the software changes, and then yeah. I'll show you through. So I'll go back to just very quickly on this. Hopefully you can see my screen now. But thanks for that, Simon. And also I think, you know, being creative in the midst of, you know, that is one of the things that's come through. It's actually within the industry we work in, it's really, I don't know, inspiring that people are innovating with you know, principally to help immediately, and also going forward. Why shouldn't there be some value out of it if you've invested time and money and energy and resources to do it? One of the things we talked about is about accelerating trends, and Dave's touched on it. We've all touched on it a little bit. So if we look at this slide and probably focus a bit more on the right hand side, do you think challenges with general manufacturing and supply chain will lead to any of the following? I just think it's interesting. We expect to see an increase in digital manufacturing, 51%. 51%. Decentralization of manufacturing will accelerate. Like you said, the kind of inflexibility of supply chains has really been a major problem. And reshoring of manufacturing will grow. Like you were saying, Dave, wasn't it? So this is probably a very slow trend overall, and we've said, haven't we, in the past, our Industry 4.0 doesn't seem to be a revolution, frankly. It's not moving very quickly, but some of these pillars of change may accelerate things. And obviously inkjet technology we're talking about here is obviously well placed to help. If anybody would like to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think if you're okay, Marcus, I just would like to say that I fully, first of all, I fully agree with Dave that companies will be needing to produce local, but also with, I think, sustainability.
Yes.
So back to your point, I think with digital printing and inkjet, there are a lot of savings that we can do. We can save energy, logistic, and in producing the right printed product digitally at the right time and in the right place. So I think also related to inkjet, so this is for digital printing, but related to inkjet, especially maybe in label and packaging, people will be looking for more safety on the inks. For the product, for the people, for the environment, and for instance, with water-based ink, there are interesting or attractive advantages of safety compared to liquid toners or UV cured inks or solvent based inks, and all of these items will be very good benefits for inkjet, and will be very good benefits for digital printing to meet the challenge of producing local and the challenge of sustainability.
Brilliant. And that leads me nicely onto this slide, which is the segue to Paul. And I've completely changed the order. Sorry about that, Paul. I know you were poised to start, but so the consumer change. Obviously, health, hygiene, and medical sector investment will grow, which Simon's happy about, I'm sure. And that's clearly going to be a key imperative. But here as well, greater focus on buying localized products, and online retail will grow significantly. Both, I imagine, not surprising. But how's that kind of playing out, I guess, on the shop floor, and in terms of packaging? I'm going to just need to find Paul on this long list of people. There you go, Paul, and I'm going to give you the presentation, Paul. And Paul's kindly joined us today. Paul's the PackHub is a really it's a community, and based upon insight and observation, and Paul's experience within the packaging industry. I've seen him speak at a number of events. Really great insights. Over to you, Paul. You're going to give us an update on COVID and packaging.
Okay, perfect. I mean, can you see my screen? Because I can't see my screen. Okay.
Very well.
So yeah, so thank you, Marcus, for that.
Gremlins today, I'm afraid.
That's okay. If you can see it doesn't really matter. I've got some words that you've got some pictures to bring my words to life. Really, it doesn't really matter if you can see the screen or not. So the PackHub is a packaging innovation consultancy. We work with brands, retailers, and packaging suppliers on a whole host of different initiatives. We have this innovation zone packaging database with nearly 4,000 initiatives that we've created over the last 5 years. So that gives us a really good sort of insight into what's going on in the market. What certainly in the last month or two, we've noticed some changes in the type of innovations that are coming to market. In terms of what's going on with COVID-19, I mean, lots of the points have already been made. But we've got clients, retailer clients, whose sales are going through the roof. They're having to employ more staff, and then we've got a coffee chain brand whose sales are literally zero. So it is a real mix of fortunes. But I think it's fair to say that the majority of people have seen a reduction in demand and consequent issues for them going forward. So in terms of what's going on in terms of packaging innovation for consumers, I mean, single-use plastic has been the devil for the last couple of years, but that we're seeing a renaissance. You may have noted in the press that reusable bags, which have been implemented around the world, are now being banned, and single-use plastic bags are back in fashion. Now, what will happen post-COVID? Will that then suddenly become the norm? All that change going into the bin, so to speak. Reusable bottles were banned before the coffee shop closures were in place. So the reusable and refillable market, which has grown enormously over the last 6 to 12 months, is definitely being impacted now in terms of hygiene. Fruit and veg packaging has moved to be more packaging free. We know wool shoppers now want to, in terms of hygiene, want packaging that secures their product and keeps it hygiene free. Shopper behaviour is changing. Tesco in the UK this week or last week recently reported a near doubling of online deliveries and the return of the weekly shop. Tesco themselves have tried to get rid of some of the complexity in their supply chain. So I think they use the example of sausages. So rather than having 412 flavours of sausages for every particular taste and variants, they're just leading on a core few. So that keeps their factories and their suppliers' factories running more efficiently. The world hasn't stopped. People are quite happy with it. I would suggest with that reduced range in their shop. So, you know, going forward, will Tesco go back to having 412 different types of sausages? I don't think they will. And that brings me on to sort of innovation projects that are currently not going ahead or being paused. That will have an implication for what we're consuming and what we're seeing on supermarket shelves in 6 to 12 months' time. So there's an awful lot going on. Recycling is not a priority for consumers. Talk of the corrugated shortages and glass shortages as that sort of chain just breaks down as people don't see it as essential journeys. So, you know, a whole range of different things are impacting on packaging and packaging innovation. I don't have a crystal ball. Going forward, the world has changed forever. A number of these things will result in us all operating in a completely different way, but only time will tell, and we don't really know for sure what will happen. Even when we're back to having a vaccine and no social distancing, I think some of the things that we're currently experiencing will have a legacy.
So thank you for that. That's good. And just on the single-use plastic, so you, like you said, funny enough, Dave, we've talked about this and you called it the inconvenient truth, but getting rid of single-use plastic that protects stuff to actually having, you know, vegetables open and fruit open and everything else. So what you're saying is that's temporarily, maybe, that's the question I was going to ask. Do you see that as a temporary change and that eventually plastic will be abandoned, or do you think health will trump that and we'll end up using as much single-use plastic as we've always used, or maybe that will precipitate some innovation around more of a integrated recyclability program, perhaps?
Somewhere in between. I think if you look at how the health authorities are saving people's lives, it's through lots of single-use plastic. Time will tell. But the anti-plastic lobbying has just reduced. I mean, you don't see that sort of anti-sentiment because there are bigger challenges. The world has a bigger challenge than pollution and plastic use at the moment.
Also from my side, so we are currently developing the packaging market for Sihl, and I want to go so far as to say that the COVID topic is a blessing for the plastic industry and rehabilitates somehow plastic packaging. So I really see it as a plastic format is currently needed. So, but I think it can stop the mega trends when it comes to sustainability, and it should not. I really hope that this sustainability trends maintains and that people start again the dialogue about what is the best sustainable way for the packaging industry and what is sustainability for packaging. And when this all ends up in a good discussion, then I think we all are really happy about that. Regarding the sustainability, this is also really interesting. We had a lot of discussion where people now realize that they really have an impact to the world, because our globe is now standing still since 8 weeks and the nature has recovered very quickly in some areas. So and people now realize, oh, okay, we really have an impact, and the discussion is really good. So this really makes it very, very, very tangible.
Yeah, and what you said there as well is it's starting to realize that actually certain ways of working are quite effective. Nothing will replace face-to-face. I know, Dave, you're a big fan of that, and I agree, but actually you can do an awful lot. Remote working is going to become a normal thing. Going back to sustainability, don't we accept now that actually the cause of this virus was actually an environmental issue? It links back to that, isn't it? I know it's a cultural issue, but it's also an environmental issue, and I think, yeah, hopefully that will there will be a number of things that become normal that are just better, frankly.
I think some of the things we're doing now will be temporarily normal. I think the big uplift in home delivery shopping, I think that will not stay at the levels it's reached now. It only works at the moment because everybody's at home to receive the parcels. As soon as people go back to work and are in their offices and are traveling, because there is nobody at home to receive those parcel slots, the new norm will be, once again, you get a bulk of your deliveries in the evening or at weekends, whereas at the moment you can accept a delivery from Tesco's at 4 a.m. because there will be people, you know, who's willing to take that. So I think people will have tried these new methods of delivery, but it won't suit everybody once they go back to the new normal of working. I think the whole thing about plastic and really support the move away from plastic packaging. One of the pre-COVID discussions, if I can put it in those terms, we were having was supermarkets had noticed that as people moved away from pre-packaged fruit and veg, when those fruit and veg were getting home, they were found to have elements of nasties on them from UV inks, non-processed photomonomers, where they've been allowed to rub against packaging and labeling. And so pre-COVID, supermarkets were already looking at how do we move towards a water-based food and food safe grade ink for all their packaging. So it doesn't matter that it was low migration or no migration. If it was rubbing off onto other things that were then being ingested, then it became more of a problem. We've seen people going back to the old practice of 20, 30 years ago of washing fruit and veg when they get it home. We've not done that in recent years. Yeah. And so having the plastic packaging as a protection now is a blessing, but I hope that it's only a short-term one, that we find new ways of protecting the product, not just from COVID, but from other things like inks that we'd rather not ingest.
Yeah, but Dave, plastic itself is not a bad thing, or it's just the way how we build it up, that we really focus on monomaterials, and that we create recycle and waste streams so that we can reuse it again. So I think we really have to focus on smart product designs that enables a good recyclability.
Yeah.
So,
So you mentioned, sorry, someone was going to.
I just start thinking about consumer change, and I think that I really can imagine that this accelerates and boosts already existing trends, and that products are even more diversified after COVID than before, after sitting 8 or 9 weeks in isolation. So people maybe have a demand for more specific and individualized products. So, and these are things I can really good imagine.
So you think that's obviously useful for digital print. So you think that will become?
Yes.
Is that link at all? Carry on.
Yes, because at the end of the day, then you're ending up at local production, maybe also the local production of packaging, and then you can really use very easily and simple digital printing for creating a nice packaging. So I think this is the way, and this is the concept that we are working on with Atai. So this is our packaging business model and brand and production lines that really enables the very local production of a packaging. Yeah,
local, that comes through quite a bit. Are you seeing that, Paul, that packaging is becoming, I guess when you're talking about very large volumes, so it's not necessarily local, but that local thing has become an issue, and it's coming through massively now, isn't it? Is that going to be a temporary thing, or do you think consumers will start demanding more of that?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I'm only judging the local thing based on, you know, social media and sort of, people making claims to support the local community in these difficult times. Global businesses aren't geared up to provide local products, so maybe there is an opportunity for the much maligned and smaller businesses to thrive post COVID-19. But as a human race, we do have a habit of forgetting old old things. And I don't have a crystal ball, as I keep saying, but it'd just be really interesting to know in 2 years' time what we will be doing in different ways. It'd be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and like you say there, the kind of post 2008 recession, the whole banker behavior thing, that year later they're back doing the same thing pretty much. So I guess there is a danger we just go back to what we were doing before. But sustainability is continually growing. Some hope before COVID. So hopefully, like you say, that becomes even more of an imperative. So anything else on consumer change there?
I would like to raise maybe one more point, because and I think it's personalization. Because in fact, during this COVID-19, many brands are very, very challenged, and they lost a little bit the loyalty of their customers. So they will have to recover this loyalty. And I see this as an opportunity also for digital print and inkjet, because with digital printing you can create information and document with variable content, with very nice software, with an automated workflow. You can print with inkjet with high quality, and for sure it will be a good tool and enabler for marketeers to contribute to the recovery of the loyalty for the brand, for instance. So it's produce local, it's sustainability, and it's hyper personalization with technologies.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think one of the things we've seen as COVID hit and the speed it hit is that packaging especially couldn't respond to the changes quick enough because the supply chains are so long.
Yes.
And one of the things we've been seeing is people queuing up to buy flour in supermarkets, the scarcity of it. Yet the manufacturers of flour saying, we have warehouses full of it, but it's in the wrong packets. It's not in the 1 kilo bag for the domestic market. It's all in 25 kilo sacks. We do not have enough packaging capacity to meet the demand. So that sudden switch in demand from 25 kilo sacks to 1 kilo bags, the industry couldn't cope with it, not because they didn't have the product, but they didn't have the right packaging. So I think digital printing, so digital printing has a role to play in that, in the ability to suddenly switch from bulk packaging to smaller packaging. Yes, you need the equipment as well, but a lot of them were saying it was actual packaging capacity that was preventing the product getting to the shelves.
Yes, this is exactly what we have seen from the market. We really received the feedback that the minimum order quantities are really high, that the demand is going to small and medium-sized packaging sizes. So, and the more flexibility in the packaging size, and this can be enabled by digital printing. If you create the packaging on the very last step, very close before the packing line, if you just print there the packaging and produce it, then you are really flexible. So and then to a very big extent, so then you're very close to the print and pack, where you really have that combined in one machine. So this is also concepts coming up that are really interesting and boosting inkjet printing.
And it will go back as the caterers recover, as the restaurants recover, then the demand for bulk packaged product will recover. So this is a momentary change in format of packaging. The product inside hasn't changed at all. It's the same flour. But I think it's an exciting time. It will cause people to question the way that they've printed and packaged in the past, and to build resilience into their systems. I think digital has a great role to play.
But the price will be important as well. I think the price will be very critical, because this is what the end customer is interested in at the end.
I think I agree up to a point, but I think the price of failure is also important. And a lot of companies, if you're sitting on a silo of flour that you can't get to the shop at a time when people are crying out for that flour, then that's a real missed opportunity in business. You know, we go to the supermarket now. If we find flour on the shelf, we don't actually look at the price. We're just happy that we've got it. So I think, yes, it's a short period. It's a windfall opportunity, But for those
So that
producers
trend,
who missed this windfall,
so that trend has come from people being at home wanting to make cakes, basically. Yeah? That
well,
kind
only
of,
because
because
you see,
we've done it here. We've
that's-
like, oh, let's make do some baking and that, and can't get the flour, as you said.
but Paul alluded that the supermarkets have reported that the volume has gone through the roof on going through the supermarket, but because we're not eating in restaurants, we're not eating at work, so of course we're eating all our meals at home. The consumption of the individual has gone up. However, he also reported that the number of shops has gone down and the basket size has gone up because people don't want to be in the supermarket buying their food. They don't want to be in contact with people at the moment. So
No.
the patterns have changed. If you're buying your shop once a week, that's fine for most things except bread and fresh fruit. And those are things that you've got to buy more often. So if you want to restrict your trips out of the house, out of safety to a minimum, yes, you can get most of your shopping, but your bread is something you need more often. And so, yes, people are home baking because it reduces their exposure to the rest of the world.
And also what you mentioned there is a reduction in SKUs. That's an interesting thing that may continue, maybe. I know because Lidl and Aldi are obviously traditionally pre-COVID, part of the value there is you only get 3,000 to 5,000 SKUs compared to 70,000 in Tesco's, and I hate that when you go to buy a simple thing and you're presented with so much choice. It makes shopping complicated. So yeah, so hopefully a reduction and simplification, and also that would be good for sustainability as well. Less waste, less choice. Okay. So just finishing up on then on consumer change and just rounding up on sort of summarising the hour. Obviously, there is some creativity out of the crisis. And that's true, isn't there? There is an opportunity. There is an opportunity as also, it seems, with inkjet, with some of the mega trends in decentralization and manufacturing, the problems with supply chains, and that the kind of agile nature of digital printing can add value into providing product that an analog system or a more elongated supply chain with a supply that's coming from a different continent, perhaps. So there's an opportunity long term, perhaps more local production and more because people are both wanting to buy local, but equally have to buy local.
I think you touched on it, Marcus. You said about the change. I think that opportunity for change has been there. It was certainly there before COVID. I think the critical word out of all the slides is accelerate. I think that change is going to accelerate. It's nothing that we hadn't all thought about before, either as manufacturers, as producers, or even as end users. What we are seeing is that rate of change now has the potential to accelerate. And those who embrace it will be able to differentiate from those who try and do it the old way.
So I guess it's a polar effect, isn't it? Accelerate decline in areas, but accelerate growth in others. Yeah,
I think it'd be accelerate the rate of change from analog to digital.
Okay, and yeah, so summarising as well, when the markets recovers, 29% say in October, but that isn't resounding, so it could be another sort of 6 months at that before we get to that point. But there is an opportunity in the meantime to be creative and innovate, because there are opportunities there, and that, like you say, that acceleration of change, it suits digital, and that Industry 4.0 trend, which seems to be moving kind of at a tectonic speed, may increase. Is there any final comments any of you guys would like to make before we kind of close the session, as it were?
I think it's stay safe, because we will, as a world, come out of this, and business will resume. But it's a great time to be involved in print.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thank you guys for joining us. I think Steffen's had to leave, but I really appreciate you joining us. And that is a key message: stay safe. It is a frustrating, distressing, anxious time for many people, but equally, once we get through this tough time, history proves markets recover, and we can return to some semblance of normality. There will be changes, won't there? And those changes, like virtual meetings, like events like this, moving slightly onto what we're planning to do, the FuturePrint virtual summit is taking place the 2nd, 4th of June. It's entirely free to attend. We have already 20 sessions confirmed. The idea of it is to provide some insight and connection during this tough time, and because we still need to come together, we still need to learn, and because the innovative things that are happening out in there, we hear a lot that albeit that production may have stopped in markets, a lot of people are collaborating, a lot of people are innovating. So that's already gathered a lot of support from our FuturePrint partners, but also other content partners we've got within the industry, and that continues to grow because people want to come together. They want to, they like the idea of this event, and we hope you can join us. And if you've got, if you're in registered for this webinar, you will get a free invitation. So all that leaves me to say is thank you to the panelists. Thank you very much. It was a great session, and thank you for joining us. There is a recording of this, and this will be made available within the next day or so. So thank you very much. That's
Thanks,
it.
Mark.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Marcus.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers.